211, 212. What's the difference? For those of us who believe in science, the difference between 211 degrees and 212 degrees, just 1 degree, is the difference between hot water and boiling water. And when water boils, it produces steam. Steam produces power. Power to run trains, power to even run entire cities. 1 degree, just 1 degree, makes a huge difference. No matter where you stand on the issues, I think you'd agree with me that America has reached a boiling point, 212 degrees. But the question we must ask ourselves is, will we panic, pass the blame, or solve the problem? As exciting and as patriotic as that may seem, a boiling point is scary, uncertain, unprecedented even. And it's a cause for panic or passing the blame. Unless, of course, you're a reluctant leader that pivots into problem solving. Can I tell you a secret? I'm what some may call a reluctant leader. Reluctant leaders are there to do the work. We're here for the greater good. We're fine working behind the scenes. And I was comfortable for many years doing the work behind a great leader, the late, great Betty Jean Kerr, a former nurse whose legacy is visible through a network of community health centers in St. Louis. As a visionary servant goes, I was good at my job until one day she tapped me to be a part of her executive team. And that was the steam that started my engine. At the same time, someone also saw my steam, my power, and asked me to lead. They asked me to run for state representative. My first response, no. My second response, no thanks. My third response was still no. Fun fact, did you know that a woman has to be asked to run for office on average 7 times before she says yes? Probably because if you're a wife or a mother, you have 99 problems and politics just isn't one. But the more they asked, the more I considered saying yes. And so, reluctantly, I started to wrap my mind around being a public servant, being a state representative. And just as the train was about to leave the station, 14 years ago, we were moving towards being a state representative, then it happened. I got knocked up. And just like a train slows down to a complete stop and the steam spews out of the pipe and goes poof, so did my dreams of being a public servant. And I once again had to say no to running for office. But my mama, God rest her soul, once told me that the quickest way to make God laugh is to tell him what you would never do. So I started to wrap my mind again around running for public service. And I had 2 friends, men nonetheless, who constantly convinced me that I had to run, despite all of the questions I had. Like, how am I going to be a single mom? And how am I going to supplement my income on a state rep salary? And all of the questions. But we had a little conversation, and it went something like this. I'm pregnant. I'm not going to run for state representative. I can't. I have to stay at home and take care of my baby. Well, congratulations. That's wonderful. When are you due? I'm due in September. Well, when does filing open? Filing opens 5 months later in February. Oh, well, that's perfect. You can have the baby, take a few months off, and launch your campaign right before Christmas. Are you crazy? Trust us. It'll all work out. We got you. And just like that, this train was back on the tracks and leaving the station. Although I looked like I was in control, inside I panicked. I panicked at the thought of being a single mom. I couldn't pass the blame because I was in the driver's seat here. So I did exactly what every reluctant leader does. I pivoted to problem solving. If being a single mom and a public servant was my path, then I was going to embrace that unapologetically. After my son was born, my motivation changed for being a public servant. He was my motivation, my why. Before he was born, I was running to be somebody. After he was born, I was running to do something. Motherhood was my boiling point, and it was the steam that pushed me into public office. But just like me, I had a boiling point. There are several others over history who've had boiling points. Let's talk about a few of them. Some may think that Kamala Harris shattered the glass ceiling for women in the executive branch. But what if I told you that she wasn't the first? Let me introduce to some and present to others Edith Wilson, the first female president. In late 1919, President Woodrow Wilson had a stroke. And guess who assumed the duties of his office while he was recovering? Not the vice president, Edith. She stepped up and used her steam to lead this country until the end of his presidency in 1921. In America, we take several things for granted, like the education of young women and girls. We tell our young girls that they can be anything they want to be when they grow up. But in Pakistan, only 13% of women are still in school by the 9th grade. This was the boiling point for Malala Yousafzai. She spoke up in the support of education of young women and girls, and unfortunately that made her a target, and the Taliban attempted to assassinate her. But that didn't stop her. She continued to speak up, most famously saying, "One child, one teacher, one book, one pen can change the world." And as a result, at 17 years old, she became the youngest person to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. And last but certainly not least, on August 9th, 2014, we reached our own boiling point in our own backyard in Ferguson, Missouri. In the aftermath of the death of Mike Brown, several reluctant leaders turned activists used their locomotive force for change. Bruce Franks was elected to the state legislature. Rasheen Aldridge was appointed to President Obama's task force on 21st century policing and also elected to the legislature. Kimberly Gardner and Wesley Bell became the first Black elected prosecutors in the city of St. Louis and the county of St. Louis, respectively. And most recently, Cori Bush, a single mom, a nurse, and a pastor, became the first Black woman elected to Congress from the state of Missouri. In all these examples, these reluctant leaders reached a turning point, a tipping point, a moment that pushed them to lead. Currently, our country has reached a boiling point, a tipping point. We're in the middle of a global pandemic. Millions are facing eviction. There's unprecedented unemployment, a national reckoning on racial justice. The list goes on and on. But the question is, what will it take you to reach 212 degrees? Your boiling point, your tipping point. What will it take for you to produce steam? Steam produces power, and power could be enough power to change the world.